Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Catherine, and in today's video I would just like to give a brief update about what's next. So just a couple of days ago or weeks ago I have finished my first marathon in Amsterdam, and I would like to share with you today what is coming next in terms of the races, in terms of just like the upcoming weeks, and also share with you the 5 things that I'm changing in my next training cycle based on all of the experience that I have gained during my first cycle. If you have missed a recap of what happened after my first marathon, so everything regarding training, regarding nutrition, the whole race itself, I will link down below a playlist of all of the videos that I made related to this topic, and it's also going to be up in the eye icon above me. But without further ado, let's start with kind of what's coming up immediately post the marathon. So I have already been in the recovery for a couple of weeks now, and what I'm trying to do now is get back into the routine of running. But basically till Christmas I'm off of any sort of marathon training block, so I'm really trying to focus on just maintaining some base mileage. So I want to work up myself to around 68 kilometers per week, if I remember correctly. And I also want to focus during this time on fixing any sort of imbalances, so working on my strength, working on my mobility, fixing my strides and all of that, so that I can come back to my next training cycle stronger, better in terms of my technique, and better prepared to avoid any sort of injuries, and just overall have a better training experience this time around, because last time I suffered from a couple of injuries, which I will touch briefly on in the next section of this video. But basically my next marathon training cycle starts on the 1st January, which is a nice segue to what kind of races am I running next year. So I generally like to schedule 2 marathons per year. So starting this year, I have only done one because my first actual running race was my half marathon. Because you might not know this, but I only started running in January of 2023. So this is the first year that I will be completing kind of the full year training cycle. And as I said, I am going to be training for 2 marathons this year. So one of them is going to be in spring. That's going to be the Prague International Marathon. And the other one is going to be in Chicago in autumn, in October. And why 2 marathons? So basically, I think that you can only do so much if you want to improve like race over race. And I think that for me, the most realistic is to do 2 races per year, one in spring and one in autumn. Why spring and autumn? Basically, the weather during these time periods, where I live at least, are the most mild and are, I think, best suited for these long runs, because it's not too hot, but it's also not too cold. In terms of the races that I have picked the one in Prague, because I live in Prague, for those that you don't know. So it's going to be really great for me to break my PB, as I will be in my like hometown, though I don't come from Prague. So I will be able to like transport very easily to the place. I will be able to carb load effectively in a very controlled environment, and also taper. So I think this is going to be also great for recovery as well after the race. Enable me to really get back into the training much faster than this time around, where I think like the recovery is taking a bit longer than I would like to. Then in terms of my autumn, I have chosen Chicago, well, mostly because it's one of the most prestigious marathons in the world, and also, you know, it feels a little bit more exclusive, just due to the fact that you actually have to have a certain qualifying time, or you have to fulfill another condition to be able to participate. So it feels that much more special. And also, I have never visited the US, so I think this is going to be a great experience, or a great opportunity for me to discover another part of the world while doing something that I love, which is racing marathons or running in general. So now let's go to the second part of this video, where I will be talking about the 5 things that I'm changing this training cycle, mainly due to the fact that, during my first cycle, it was my first training cycle, it was my first marathon, and I was able to learn a lot of things about not only myself as a runner, but also about myself as a person. And I think that I can improve a lot on what I did before. I have learned that I have made a lot of mistakes, and I want to keep improving, and I want to share what I'm trying to improve with you as well. So the first thing that I'm going to be improving, and sorry for looking down, but I have my laptop here so that I don't forget anything or that I don't screw up something, is that I'm going to be doing a structured warm-up and cool-down routine pre and post every single run. So I haven't started doing this only after I was very late in the training cycle, and that was mainly because I had suffered some injuries and I was really trying to look what I can do to prevent them. And one of those things that I have learned is very important to prevent injuries is to do a warm-up and a cool-down. So moving forwards, I definitely want to have a structured routine that I can repeat pre and post every single run, just to keep me in better shape, to get me warm before I started running, to avoid those injuries. First, what I want to do is kind of perfect this routine, and then maybe I'll do like a separate video sharing with you what is the exact exercises that I do. They are of course very individualized, so very tailored to me and to my kind of weaknesses. But all in all, kind of the structures of the warm-up and the cool-down are as follows. So I start with some dynamic stretches, mostly working on my glutes, on my hips, and also on my calves, because I tend to be tight around there, and that is also where I suffer from most like pains and niggles. So I start with those. Then I continue with some activation exercises, again mostly for my glutes, so I use a bit of a like band work, so TheraBand. And lastly, I finish with a couple of exercises from the runner's alphabet. So I usually do A skips, B skips, and step overs. And this is really to then translate into a better stride during my running, because I believe that my stride and my overall technique might be a contributor to like the injuries that I had the last training cycle. So that is my warm-up. And in terms of the cool down, it's in a similar vein to my warm-up. So instead of dynamic stretches, I do static stretches of all of the main muscle groups. So that would be, glutes. I also work on my hips and my calves. So those are the main areas that I'm trying to stretch around. And then I also have a separate kind of injury prevention routine that I will talk about a little bit later in the video. So that is the first thing that I'm changing this time around. The second thing that I'm trying to improve on is spending this time between my training blocks. So basically from now till New Year's, and working on my technique. So I actually decided to hire a coach that would analyze my stride, my overall running form, so that I know which areas I need to improve in, because I really want to fix my stride and also work on my cadence. Because from what I could see on my Apple Watch, which is maybe not the most accurate way to measure your cadence, is that I might be a little bit slower, or my cadence is basically slower than what would be recommended. So during my last marathon, I think it was around 170, maybe 175, and I really want to get it to 180. And also that would apply for my training runs, where I really struggle, especially during the slower runs, to get my cadence past like 165, which is super low. So that is the second point. Third point, again, tying up to preventing all of those injuries, because I think that the most important thing that's going to enable you to improve the cycle over cycle is to be consistent with your training. And what leads to consistency is not having any sort of injury. So I have decided that this time around, I want to have a proper structured injury prevention routine that I will do at least 3 times a week. And for this, I have signed up to a program that was developed by a physiotherapist. He's also here on YouTube. His name is James Dunn, or June, sorry for pronouncing your name wrongly. But basically it's called Bulletproof Runners. And it's a very simple, structured program that every single week you have a routine of 20 minutes, and you repeat that at least 2 to 3 times per week, and each week you kind of build up on what you developed last week, so the exercises get progressively like harder, and the main aim is really to make you a stronger runner, to really work on kind of those foundations, so engaging your core, mobilizing your hips, and preventing those injuries. So I'm doing that, and it coincides that at the moment I'm also doing 3 easy runs per week. So after every single easy run, it is part of my cool down routine to do this bulletproof runners program as well. So that's the third thing. Then the fourth thing, which is I think crucial to improving your performance, is I'm trying to fuel myself properly. So not only in training, but also in my life in general. Because the same way as I have a very structured training plan, so each week I know exactly which days I'm running on, what kind of run it is, if I'm doing a strength session, I also want to have a dedicated kind of fueling plan, so that I'm able to know what I'm eating pre-run, in the run, and after the run. So really focusing on getting my body to be the most performing and most efficient as it can possibly be. So making sure that I never go out fasted. I just find that it doesn't improve my performance and that it is really bad for my hormones, so I'm not doing that. Then I'm also making sure that if I'm doing a longer run, I take in something during the run, and post-run, I'm really trying to focus on having a nice balance of both carbs and protein so that I can recover as fast as possible for my next training session. And this is really something that I only hone into during the later part of my training, and I think that this could be also a contributing factor to some of the injuries that I have, mainly because, you know, I was going out on an empty tank and my body just simply didn't have enough energy to fuel those trainings. But outside of just the nutrition around like the training window, what I have also noticed during my last training cycle is that I need to be very particular about my fat intake and actually prioritizing my fat intake. I have noticed, or like I'm a person that loves carbs, so I really don't suffer with kind of the thoughts of, oh, carbs make you fat, I cannot do carbs. Like, I think like if I could, I would eat just carbs only, which is not a healthy way to do so. Please don't do that. But essentially, I don't have issues with like whole carbs and the carbs availability and all of that. But what I struggle then with is fats. So I have noticed that if I don't have at least 1 gram of fat per kilogram of body weight every single day, then my hormones are out of whack. So I get irregular periods, missing periods, and I really need to make sure that I get fat intake, or that I get fat every single day in order to, you know, be functioning appropriately. And this means that I'm trying to prioritize fats in the meals that are outside of my training window. So as I said, before and after my training, I really focus on those carbs and protein to enable faster recovery. And then during the later part of the day where I might not be training, I try to incorporate more fat and less carbs, just so that over the course of the day, I have a balanced intake of everything, and that I also, you know, fuel my training properly. I will probably make a separate video about my fueling strategy and kind of the macros that I follow as well. So that's the fourth thing. And the last thing I'm doing is touching upon like really my training itself. And that is I'm trying to incorporate more strides into my everyday training. So during my last training block, I was really neglecting those, and I think I did it just like maybe 5 times during the whole like training block. So this time around, I want to incorporate in more because I think that they will enable me to get faster without necessarily being that taxing on my body as, you know, intervals and tempo training are. So, you know, trying to incorporate them at the end of some of my like longer runs. So maybe at the end of my long run or at the end of my medium long run, I think is going to be very beneficial in getting me faster. And so those were all of the 5 things that I'm improving. So please let me know down in the comments if you are trying to improve something during your current training cycle, or if you're off season, what are you generally working on? What do you think are your weaknesses? Also, please let me know what are your upcoming races for the next year or for like the next month in this year still. Maybe we will meet each other in one of those races. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. And if you also want to follow me on my Instagram, where I post like all of the kind of behind the scenes about my life, so everything I do outside of running, but also sometimes I share what kind of workouts I'm doing. The Instagram will be linked down below. And if you want to follow me around on this journey, then I will be very happy if you give me a subscribe. So thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!